Hello and welcome to the curriculum preview for the third 6 weeks. This curriculum preview will focus on deeper thinking and planning to focus on deeply learning our standards. In this curriculum PLC, you will deconstruct, unpack, and gain a deeper understanding of the standards to plan for student success. I am Felicia Wilkerson, the Elementary ELAR and Social Studies Coordinator. For this curriculum PLC, you will need your PLC for the Reading PLC document, copies of your Content Builder document, and your IFD for Unit 3. Please take a moment to review your assessment blueprint. Please note the number of instructional days, as well as the assessment posting and assessment dates. Your agenda for this PLC are to first review our learning targets, study our heat map data to identify hotspot areas and concerns, study our standards, and collaborate with your team to discuss the instructional implications and evidences of learning using the standards. Your learning targets are to use the standards to plan for instruction, use high-interest resources to plan for student learning with expository text, plan for evidences of learning that are aligned with the standards that will allow students to analyze, make inferences, and draw conclusions about expository text and provide text evidence to support their understanding, and to ensure that you align curriculum, instruction, and assessments in order for students to master the standards. We understand that our curriculum, or our state standards, and the unit and state assessments are aligned. Therefore, we must align our instruction with the curriculum and assessments so that student learning can occur to the depth and complexity of the state standards. Many teachers believe they understand the standards, but the truth is many teachers have not had the opportunity to truly deconstruct, unpack, and understand their standards. Let's take the opportunity today to do just that and to deeply understand our standards for this unit. The fact is, in order to implement curriculum, instruction, and assessment that are accurately aligned to state standards, students must have the tools to deeply understand the standards. The tools that help us achieve this are our IFD and the Content Builder documents, as well as using our PLC team as a resource to have some rich discussions about the standards and the instructional implications they hold. We use PLC discussions to discuss student learning and how it is to align with the state standards. It is a time of learning and sharing. Please pause the video at this time to discuss the following questions. What tools do you use to understand the standards? And what criteria can you establish to ensure instruction is aligned with the state standards? Please pause the video to allow time for discussion. We will begin by studying our Grade 6 heat map by standard. In Unit 3, our primary focus for reading is the study of expository text. First, review and study the expository SEs. Next, review and study the knowledge and skill statements that are assessed and dual-coded with our process standards, Figure 19. 6.10 knowledge and skill statement is assessed and dual-coded with Figure 19D. Though it is at 67% for the last assessment, it is an area of concern because there was more than a 5-point decrease from the previous year. 6.13 is still an area of concern, as well as 6.10 when it's dual-coded with Figure 19E. And lastly, Figure 19F, which is in a cross-genre standard, also is an area of concern as it has declined over the last 3 years. These are our identified hotspots and areas of concern. Most of them are the knowledge and skill statements. SEs that we will focus on for this curriculum preview is 6.10C and 6.10, the knowledge and skill statement. In order to truly understand your standards, it's important that you understand the TEAC structure. The strand for this standard is reading strand for expository text. Next, you have your knowledge and skill statement, followed by the SEs. This knowledge and skill statement is assessed and dual-coded with Figure 19D and E, so it's important that we deeply understand this knowledge and skill statement. 610A, C, and D are also readiness standards and are assessed yearly on STAR. Step 1 is to analyze the knowledge and skill statement. Note the levels of inferences students need to make. Also note that this knowledge and skill statement is dual-coded with Figure 19D and E. The IFD provides example questioning for you to consider as types of questions students should be asked to respond to. Please pause the video at this time to discuss the following questions. What are the most important ideas in this knowledge and skill statement? What broad concepts will the student need to know to master the standard? Are these ideas being introduced or developed? And if so, where and in what context? And how are these ideas relevant to students? 6.10c, which is another one of our hotspots, says explain how the different organizational patterns develop the main idea and the author's viewpoint. Notice that the standard does not say identify the text structure. What would this look like in students' evidence of learning for analyzing text structure? Please pause the video at this time to allow for a rich discussion about this SE. At this time, I'd like you to turn to your IFD to closely study the SEs and the knowledge and skill statements we've identified as our hotspots and our areas of concern. For each SE, identify the verb, that is the cognitive expectation. Identify the content to be taught. What are you explicitly teaching? And the context. Here it will be expository text in the context of the whole, part, and specific lines of the text. Discuss as a team the concepts and vocabulary students will need to understand in order to master the SE. Discuss and decide what other SEs in the various strands of ELAR can the standard be paired or bundled with. Discuss and select the different types of resources needed for students to master the standard. What will the resources need to include? Discuss what information the students will need to know in order to master the standard. For instance, with expository text, they will need to know that every paragraph has a main idea, and sometimes that main idea is stated in a topic sentence, and other times it is implied. They may also need to know specific information about text structure. What are the instructional implications of the verb? These are descriptions of what teachers should do in the classroom. It answers the question, what does it look like? And finally, what are the assessment implications of the verb? What are some ways to informally and formally assess student mastery? Please pause the video at this time as you dig deeper into your standards and consider the now what of the standards. Planning for expository text. What do we want our students to learn? So after you have deconstructed your standards, the next thing you want to do is establish your learning targets for students by writing it out. Choose a variety of high-interest expository texts with different organizational patterns and that have rich text that will allow students to make complex inferences and draw conclusions about the text. Read and annotate the text prior to assigning it to students. Are the main ideas in each paragraph stated or implied, or is there a good mixture of both? Does the topic and the information allow for students to infer and analyze the text? Create text-dependent questions for students to answer collaboratively and independently. Establish different purposes for reading that you will share with the students. How will you help students establish their own purposes for reading? Consider how you will model the thinking that you expect students to demonstrate independently. And lastly, Consider how students will demonstrate their analysis of the expository text. What will be the evidence of learning? Allow me to provide an example. If I were considering this article to present to my classroom, I would ask myself these following questions. Does the article have various structures? Can I create text-dependent questions using the article that align with the standards? What will the students provide as evidences of learning after reading this article? What strategies will I model for students to emulate? Can the students draw a conclusion based on the text? And are there multiple author's purposes in sections of the text? And is the author's purpose clear? Allow me to provide you with some example student learning targets for expository text. Learning targets should be clear and directly aligned with the standards. Students will analyze, make inferences, and draw conclusions about expository text in order to understand the big ideas, supporting details, authors' various purposes, and text structures in order to explain how ideas are connected. Students will probe each main idea in the text. Students will analyze paragraphs for sentences that support the big ideas. Students will effectively summarize portions of the text using main ideas and details. Students will effectively summarize the whole text using main ideas and details. Students will use text features and structures to understand and analyze the text. Students will generate their own questions about the text. Students will answer text-dependent questions and provide evidence from the text to support their understanding. Students will describe the text structures using text evidence. Students will distinguish facts from opinions in the text and explain why it is a fact within the context of an expository reading. Students will determine the author's purpose of specific paragraphs within an expository text. Or students will determine the author's purpose of the entire expository text and provide evidence to support their understanding. The Content Builder is a tool to use to organize your instruction. For reading, our process standards are Figure 19. Figure 19A, B, and C, and the use of a flexible range of active reading skills are the ways in which the students will access the concepts and content. Students must be able to use comprehension skills in order to fully engage with the text. Likewise, students also demonstrate their learning through the process standards, Figure 19. The student's ability to make inferences, summarize text, and make connections within the text and between other texts on the same topic are ways students demonstrate their analysis of text. Please pause the video to discuss each readiness standard and ways your team can support that learning through scaffolds of learning. The Content Builder tool can be used with each knowledge and skill statement and each SE to help you plan your daily lessons. Appropriate and different types of assessments are essential for informing students about their level of success in ways that affirm and stimulate their efforts, and for informing their teachers so that more customized learning experiences may be provided in a timely way. Assessments are used to help us make instructional decisions based on students' needs. Well-conceived and well-designed evidences of learning should also be used to reveal to parents, the school, the district, and society at large the extent to which the desired learning and mastery is occurring and what schools are doing to continuously improve. MIDR will take you far when you're reading informational text. This strategy for expository text is called MIDR, which is really just an acronym. MI stands for main idea, D stands for detail, and R stands for response. Students read an informational text closely, analyzing each paragraph for the main idea, the most important details, while monitoring their own comprehension. On the passage, you can see the routine and expectations that students establish their own purpose for reading by posing a question they expect to have answered. This will be their writing assignment, where they will write an expository text explaining the answer to their question. Also, you can see the students' use of active reading and their own strategy as to how they decided to approach the text. Many strategies had been modeled, and students used strategies that worked for them. For each paragraph, students either write the topic sentence as the main idea, or they paraphrase their own main idea when it is implied. Students then paraphrase and summarize the most important details in the text that support the main idea. Finally, reading is thinking, so we always want students to respond to what they are reading. This thinking should demonstrate their level of understanding. Student responses include inferences, their own questions, and active reading to demonstrate their understanding of text. Turning headings and subheadings into questions. This is a SIOP strategy where the student will be able to turn headings and subheadings into key questions and then answer the questions after reading about the topic. As a teacher delivers a lesson, it is critical that students have a purpose for reading so they see the path they are to follow. Questions provide students with the purpose. Guide students to look at the bold headings to predict the types of questions they may be asked about the information in the text. Model for the entire class and demonstrate how to turn the headings and subheadings in a text into questions. These questions become the focus and purpose for the subsequent reading. Students use the questions to monitor their comprehension throughout the text. Students write the questions and answer them during and after reading. Finally, we want to ensure that we are integrating reading and writing. Students should read, write, and discuss daily. Writing instruction is continuous as students are to consistently draft about their learning, their reading, their research, etc. Culminating activities should include the integration of reading and writing as they are reciprocal processes. For instance, after reading informational texts, allow students to authentically generate a research question they would like to investigate. Or students can write an expository text based on their initial question prior to reading the text. Students can then research further on the topic and begin a draft to explain or inform. Teachers can provide descriptive feedback for revising and editing and allow the student to carry that research writing through the full writing process. View this video as students and educators talk about the importance of reading comprehension. Notice how the students are reading, writing, and discussing.
I feel like comprehension is the holy grail of reading instruction.
The predictions help me to kind of expect what's going to happen next. The inferences make me aware of the characters.
It's not that other aspects of reading aren't challenging, and it's not as though there aren't, important areas of research to pursue in other aspects of reading, but really comprehension is what it's all about. It's what we're aiming for.
The connections help because if I'm connected it to something, then it helps me learn more because I know about what I connected it to.
For the definition of comprehension, I just draw on the Rand Commission's report where they call comprehension the process of simultaneously extracting and constructing meaning from text. And to me, comprehension is absolutely the goal of reading. It's why we all read.
Well, like it is. They don't sugarcoat anything. They have integrity, accuracy, and authenticity, and both use figurative language. The book that we are reading by Gary Paulson is nonfiction, but still has figurative language.
Where did you come up with all those great words?
Just right there. They're both honest, and their words can be proven, and they both use language that's figurative or literal.
You were able to prove everything that you said. You backed it up with some really strong details.
Research suggests that teachers actually can make a really big difference in students' comprehension. They can do this by teaching comprehension strategies, which is something that's been shown over and over in research.
Maybe we make fun. We need this, but not this.
They can also make a difference for students by engaging students in discussion and writing and other opportunities to really construct meaning from text, share meaning with others, and sort of negotiate meaning in a social context.
Brain, all of you kiss your brain.
Finally, teachers make a big difference for students' comprehension when they build their knowledge base. comprehension really relies on you're having a lot of knowledge relevant to the text. And so the more that teachers can do to provide rich experiences and build knowledge for students, the better the students' comprehension development will go.
Some differences from the South that are needed.
Remembers reasons why the African Americans moved from the South to the North. Okay, Giancarlo, go ahead.
They moved because they needed a better life because they didn't have money.
Okay, that's good. Better life. What do you mean by better life? Because that's a general term, right? Okay.
For a better job.
Okay, a better job. What was another reason? Go ahead.
The war had doubled the cost of food and made life harder for the poor.
Okay.
The 3rd through 5th grade is an incredibly important time for comprehension development.
The river rises and rises until it floods before the modern dams were built.
It's certainly a time when the texts that students are reading become much more complex. The topics are often more abstract, less in the here and now. The nature of the language in the text becomes more written-like and less like the oral language that children are accustomed to.
Should we do this, the little part of the subtitle under the picture?
That's a great idea. Is it important? Is it interesting? Does it need to be included? Josephine?
I don't think so.
Why not?
Because it's not really about the topic, but it's about one single crisis.
So it's a detail
Yeah.
about one artifact.
The structure of the text becomes a lot more advanced, more sophisticated. Texts often include more features such as diagrams, tables, maps, charts, and so on in informational text, or more complex plot devices in narrative text. And for students who are encountering these for this first time, they pose a tremendous challenge. We have a lot of really interesting research on what good readers do when they read. With most of these studies, what we do is actually have good readers talk aloud or think aloud as they read. We observe them, we listen to what they say, and then we're able to know sort of what's going on in their head that allows them to comprehend so well. Study after study of this kind shows that good readers are extremely active when they're reading.
And let's think about what would cause Gary Paulson to stop trapping. That's what I want you to think about today. Before I begin, Anthony?
I have an inference that he stopped trapping because he wanted to go into dog races, and you usually get rewarded much more money than you would trapping.
Okay, what is leading you to infer that he's going to stop that for dog racing?
Because he has dogs, and he probably saw this flyer or something that he probably just saw reward, and then he said, dog racing, I have dogs, so why don't I just join?
They're really making meaning as they go. They're thinking constantly about what they're understanding, what they're not understanding. They're reacting to the text with opinions, with counterexamples, with connections to their own experiences. They're applying background knowledge like crazy. That comes up in study after study as such an important part of what good readers do when they read. They ask themselves questions as they read often. They are previewing, they're looking at text structure. They're just extraordinarily active.
What if the teacher makes her friends? What about the other kids don't be her friends?
Then that'll be okay.
But I think it's gonna be just like for all these children. First she's gonna have an enemy, then she's gonna have a friend. So she wants her mom to come to school. She's just gonna want her brother to come to school with her every day.
And what happens if her brother's gonna go without her?
She could go with her dad.
But maybe her dad works.
Yeah, what if her dad's not around?
I got a question that we might find in the book later, but could I ask it now?
Sure.
Does the dad have a job?
You never know. You don't know yet. Maybe he's in the factory because she might be an immigrant.
When I contrast that with some of the struggling readers we work with, it's really stark. We'll have students who just open up the text and immediately start reading, not thinking about why they're reading, not previewing the text, not thinking about what it might be about. Then as they read, it's just really trying to take in the very bare bones facts of the text without really processing it, without trying to integrate it with what else they know, without in any way questioning whether the text may be accurate. One of the most important things that teachers need to do to build students' comprehension is to teach comprehension strategies, to teach children to do those things that good readers do when they read.
I will share more of the video in PLCs to come. But as we've been talking about in all the other curriculum previews, it's the process of reading that's most important, and teachers can have a strong impact on student comprehension. At this time, discuss with your team the planning and delivery of the instruction of Unit 3. Discuss the types of text that will be used and the levels of thinking students will be expected to demonstrate. For reading, all levels of thinking should be used. Based on your previous discussions and your careful deconstructing, unpacking, and understanding of the standards, determine various instructional strategies you can use to model and facilitate student learning. Finally, discuss what types of evidences of learning will demonstrate that students have carefully analyzed the informational text. What are the different ways in which it should look? How should it sound? Please pause the video at this time to allow for discussion. Finally, before we close, I want to go back and review our learning targets. Can you use the standards to plan for instruction? Can you choose high-interest resources to plan for student learning with expository text? And can you plan for specific evidences of learning that are aligned with standards? And can you ensure that your curriculum, instruction, and assessments are aligned for students to master the standards? I appreciate you participating in the PLC curriculum preview to better understand the standards. If you have suggestions for future curriculum previews, I'd love to hear your ideas, and please feel free to submit them to me. Also, I would love to hear from you if you have an instructional strategy that you would like to showcase in upcoming videos. Please be sure to submit a copy of the PLC for the Reading PLC document to the appropriate campus designee. And until next time, goodbye.